Today's date is June 20th, 2014. We are in the WIPB studios on the campus of Ball State University. With us today is Jessica Robinson, and this is for the 2014 Ford Oval of Honor program. So can you state your full name, your final rank, and any honors and awards that you were given?
My name is Jessica Robinson. Sorry, what was the question?
Final rank?
My final rank was Sergeant.
Honors and awards.
And my honors were basic deployment honors. I have 2 Army Commendation Awards, the Iraqi Service Medal, the War Campaign Medal, just the basic ones.
Okay. When and where were you born?
I was actually born in Indianapolis at Methodist Hospital in 1988.
Okay. Did you come from a military family?
Actually, yeah, both of my parents were in the Air Force, and so they met in the Air Force, and my mom had my older sister, and so she got out, but my dad did, I think, 6 or 7 years in the Air Force, and he worked on jets and launched jets, and so we heard a lot of stories growing up, and then we have a long history of military service in my family.
Grandparents, uncles?
My grandparents didn't serve, but my great-grandparents did, and we have people that have been in every conflict back to the Civil War.
Okay.
Even before that, probably.
Did that factor into your decision to enlist?
Not at the time it didn't, but thinking about it now, it probably did, because it just, I knew that it was an option, and that I thought that, you know, it would give me to more places and let me help people, and so just having a family that was acceptant of the military and kind of a little knowledgeable about military culture, I think that helped slowly open the door.
Mm-hmm. So you had family support when you approached them and said, I want to join the military.
My family was very supportive, and they didn't push me either way. They just said, you know, it's your decision, and this is what's likely to happen, and, you know, we're not going to push you either way, but make sure that you weigh the decision. And but yeah, both of my parents were very supportive and just let me know how it was really going to be, and that it wasn't going to be easy, but as long as I made what I could out of it, I would get mostly what I wanted, and as long as I just held on and didn't get discouraged.
When did you decide to enlist? How old were you?
I was a junior in high school. I had just turned 17 when a recruiter approached me, and it was actually me and my twin sister, and he was just talking to us about it, and he asked if we wanted more information, so we took some home and we talked to our dad about it, and he was very honest up front and accepting, and he's, you know, it's a big decision, and you know, it's something that's honorable, but you really have to take your time and make that decision.
So it came down to your personal choice.
Yeah.
Your parents were supportive and accepting. Can you describe your personal motivations behind the decision to enlist, and what was foremost in your mind?
Yeah. I joined because I wanted to help people, and so I looked at the Army and the Navy and the Air Force and the Coast Guard, kind of decided what I really wanted to do with my life, or what my 17-year-old self thought I wanted to do with my life. And I decided that I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to help people. And at the time I wanted to be a forensic scientist. And so I thought that by joining the National Guard, I would still be able to go to college, but I would get to respond to more natural disasters and help more American people. And so I think that's what really got me to choose the National Guard, was that I could go to college at the same time that I was serving, and that, you know, if we had a natural disaster, which we did all the time, we could respond and help with it. And it was right around Katrina, I think, is what had that in my mind.
What was your basic training? Can you describe basic training and your advanced training?
Basic training was interesting. My basic training and my advanced individual training, AIT, were separated. So after my junior year of high school, I went and did basic training, and it was hard. It was really hard, I won't lie. But it was, a lot of people think it's this physical endurance game, and it's more of mental endurance and just knowing that you can get through it and that, you know, it's going to end. There were a lot of obstacle courses, and so that was hard, and just kind of getting to know other people. And I didn't really grow up in a household where I was yelled at a lot like they yell at you at basic training, and so just getting used to that was interesting. But I was able to stay quiet and kind of hide in a corner most of the time, so most of the drill sergeants didn't even know my name.
That was the response of our Vietnam veteran. He said, I learned very early to stay under the radar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you went to basic training over the summer between your junior and senior years.
Yeah.
How did, or let me rephrase that, did going through basic training affect how you approached your senior year in school?
Yeah, going through basic training before my senior year of high school, I think, changed me as a person. I was more motivated, and I felt like I had already done more, so I was kind of like at a distance from my other classmates, and just like I knew that I was going to do something with my life, and so that gave me motivation to just work really hard and graduate with honors. I looked at school a little differently, and it was more of a means to an end than something that I just had to go to.
When did you decide on the military police as your occupation in the military?
I decided on that when I joined. So I think we listed 3 job choices, and the first one was our number one, and I chose military police just because I thought that that would get me either into a police department or into military training where I could do some forensic work. But then I went to college and took the forensic class, and I was like, not for me.
So you found out later, probably even before you maybe took the forensic class, but what appealed to you, was there a different or special appeal about military police with regards to maybe National Guard or staying here in the U.S.?
I think it was just the recruiter mentioned what you would do, and I liked the idea of responding to emergencies and helping people again.
Okay. After training, what unit were you assigned to?
When I finally finished training, I was assigned to the 38th MP Company out of Danville. And so we were actually assigned when we joined, but we didn't actually go to the unit until we finished all of the training. And before that, in between when I joined and went to basic training, and then after basic training, I actually did a recruit sustainment program here in Muncie. And they just train you for basic training and then for AIT later.
Was the 38th, was this a National Guard unit or a regular Army unit?
It's a National Guard unit.
Okay. How long were you with this unit before you got the orders that you were going to be deployed?
I was with the unit. I hadn't even met anybody. I graduated from basic training October 18th, and I found out a week later that we were deploying and that I had to start deployment training in 2 weeks. And so maybe a week.
What was your reaction? What were your emotions?
I was surprised. I was prepared to deploy. I don't think that I was prepared to deploy right after I finished training. And so I was surprised, and I didn't know how I was going to tell my family. My twin sister was 9 months pregnant, and we were really close. And so I was like worried about how I was going to tell her, because I wanted to be there to help with my nephew and, you know, just be there for her. And so I couldn't do that if I was deployed. And so just telling her and then telling my family, because that's something that they were worried about, was me getting deployed. And her husband had already found out that he was getting deployed 6 months after I was. And so it was just, they were all prepared for him to go, and then 2 of us were going to be deployed at the same time, and it actually turned into 3 family members being deployed at the same time.
Who was the third?
My brother-in-law was deployed. One of my other brother-in-laws were deployed. So it was 3 of us in the same family at the same time.
Wow. What about you personally? You say you were worried about your sister, and you were concerned for your nephew, and you worried about your parents' reaction. Were you worried about yourself?
No, it didn't really sink in what I was actually going to go do. It was just more military stuff, I think, was just what I thought about it. And so I didn't really think that I was leaving, you know, for a while, and it didn't really, it crossed my mind that I might not come back, but I was able to just push it away.
Mm-hmm. What sort of reception did you have when you joined the 38th? How were you accepted by your colleagues?
It depends on which colleagues. It was a struggle, I think, just because I'm a small, short, petite female. And so just, it was like a constant battle to prove myself. And some people, a lot of the people accepted me right away, but there were some people that were not as accepting, and I actually got kicked out of a platoon at one point for being too small. It's just not allowed, but it happened. And so it's just a struggle constantly trying to prove myself. And so then, you know, you're doing all of this hard stuff and you don't want to ask for help anyway, and then trying to prove yourself at the same time was a struggle. So I would say some people accepted me and other people just did not.
How did you react to those challenges?
I confronted them head on. Just, you know, I did what I had to, and I did the same job that everybody else did, and I tried to do it as well, if not better. Sometimes it wasn't good, and sometimes I felt like I did a really good job. And then somebody bought me the book If Big Can, I Can. It's this little children's book, and so it was just as a joke, but it was kind of like yeah, I can do this, and it doesn't matter what gets in my way.
Did you find particular confidence or support to meet these challenges from your family members?
Yeah. My family has been like my biggest support, and so I didn't want to let them know everything that happened. And so when I did talk to them about stuff, they were always really supportive, and, you know, you could do this. And so the people that I got close to in my unit were really supportive too, and they were just like, you know, just blow it off, don't let it bother you.
Your mother was in the military. Did she have any words of wisdom for you?
Just keep your head down and don't date the guys.
That's probably good wisdom no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
What sort of training before you deployed did your entire unit undergo, and then was there anything special because you probably weren't the only female member in your company and you were deploying to an Islamic country? What, I guess, challenges and difficulties did that pose?
The training we did before deployment was we had a medical checkup just to make sure that we were physically able to go and that there was nothing wrong with us. And then once we cleared that, we did 2 weeks of training at Camp Atterbury, and it was just military tactics, responding to IEDs and responding to fire and 9-line medevacs and medical training and just a bunch of random stuff, kind of getting used to driving military vehicles. And it was really cold outside, so we didn't really get to have the dusty environment, but kind of like in a different environment than what we're used to. We did ranges and just reflective fire and just reorienting ourselves with our weapons. And then after that, we went and we had a week or 2 week break, and then we went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and we did more training there, vehicle training, IED training, EFP training, how to interact with the local populations, a little bit of what the different languages mean and like what to watch out for. It's a bunch of stuff, but there wasn't anything specific to females. It was, you know, we're all going to go over there and do the same job, and it was just, you know, the only thing that I remember being taught about being female versus male was never to go anywhere alone, and we got told that we needed to be extra careful because of rape rocks in Iraq. And rape rocks are basically big rocks or bricks that people will come up and smash into the back of your head and then rape you and then leave you somewhere. And so it was just, you know, don't go anywhere without somebody with you, and watch out for people. And I'm pretty sure we were told not to flirt with other guys and to just stay with the guys in our unit and just, you know, don't go anywhere alone, kind of.
Yeah. Was this added additional training heightening your senses and your anxiety, or were you mission oriented?
I was very mission oriented. I don't think that the training really worried me. The rape rock training that culture was a little bit insulting, I think, but it didn't kind of change my views or kind of what my mission was going to be.
Was this something, did you want to go or be deployed to Iraq, or would you have rather stayed stateside or maybe gone to another country?
I don't think I had an opinion about being deployed. I think part of me wanted to do it because that's how you prove yourself in the military. It's just going into hard situations and facing that and coming back with this experience that you can teach other people. So I don't think, I did not want to go, but I wasn't like, oh yeah, I have to go. I was, if it happens, it happens, and it happened really fast for me.
Okay. Page 2, we're zipping through things. Can you describe your role as a military policeman in a combat zone?
Military police in a combat zone, they can be different just depending on your unit. There are two kinds of military police. So you have military police that do the same thing as police officers here and just kind of patrol bases and give tickets and monitor traffic and respond to emergencies. And then you have combat MPs, which is the unit that I got assigned to, and you basically go out on patrols, and some people have equated it to rolling infantry. And so instead of walking everywhere, we drive everywhere, but we still go out and do missions and kind of drive through cities and make sure that everything's going okay. We worked a lot of missions alongside infantry or in support of infantry units. But our main task was going around to different Iraqi police stations and training them on policing tactics and how to humanely treat their detainees and what's right and wrong, and how do you aim when you shoot a gun, and how do you do proper investigations. And then another part of our job, my job, was to drive my commander around and provide security for him. And so that's what my squad did more than anything, was drive the commander where he needed to go and provide his security.
Was that considered a good job or a bad job?
It depended on who you talked to. It wasn't the greatest job. I definitely don't think it was the worst. Our commander wasn't well liked, and he was targeted by a lot of people because sometimes he didn't do the right things, and so he wasn't always very well liked by military personnel and the Iraqi people. So it was infuriating at times, but other times it was just any other job.
Where, pardon me, how did you maintain your focus in that stressful situation?
Just by being with my squad and letting them know like what I was upset about, and just zoning out and just looking forward to coming home. And I'm not really sure how I kept my cool or kept calm when I was mad at him. Sometimes I didn't, honestly. Sometimes he found out. Sarcasm and jokes were a big thing to take the edge off of things. It's just finding ways to joke about things. And so we had like a pickup line of the day, and just random jokes. And so just sharing jokes and funny stories and just talking about lighter situations, I think, helped a lot.
What about the people in your unit, your platoon maybe? How did you come together, and what was the bond? What was the relationship?
The people in my platoon, aside from the squad that I was in, they were headquarters and did something completely different than what we did. So as a squad, we were really bonded, and we worked very well together. We had over 200 something combat missions. So it was like brother and sisters, like we were just a big family, and so it was kind of like we kept a family dynamic to it, so it was easier and was really close with everyone in the squad.
I'm trying to rephrase my question. Were there other women in your MP unit?
Yeah, there were probably 20 to 30 other women in my unit. There was one other female in my squad. At other times there were two, but normally there were just the two of us. And so it was normally about, if there were females in the squad, there were 2 females in each squad. And so I think we had about maybe 20 females. It wasn't a lot. A lot of females worked in the headquarters platoon as just doing like different jobs in headquarters, like paperwork, and I think there were 5 or 6 of them that were in the chow hall. They worked in the chow hall, so most of them were cooks. And then there were, I would say about 15, maybe 15 of us that went that were actually assigned to different platoons and went out on missions.
When you went out on a mission, can you walk us through a typical patrol or a typical mission and what your activities were?
Yeah, so we would wake up about 6, we'd get up about 6:30, and we'd go out and we'd get our vehicles from the motor pool. We had to go out in different sections because we couldn't have everybody at the motor pool at once. And so we would go get our truck from the motor pool and drive it to our staging area right around where we were staying. And then I would start loading stuff in the truck, and then my gunner would go get breakfast for us. And then, we had to do the PMCS on the truck, and so we had to make sure that all of the fluids were there and that we weren't leaking any oil and we had enough gas and that everything was cleaned, and we'd just get the truck ready for whoever was riding with us. We'd make sure the ammo was in place, and then when he got back, we'd eat breakfast, and then he would mount his weapon on the top of the truck, and then we would go in. That probably took an hour and a half normally, going through and making sure everything's there. We can do it a lot faster. We just did it slow when we could, and then we would go into a mission brief, and that normally took 15 to 20 minutes, and you go over what you're doing that day, who's going to be there, if there's additional people, where are they going to sit, and then you go through different, it's a sandbox training, and you go through, if this truck gets blown up, we respond this way, or if you start getting shot at, you respond this way, and we'll go over our route and where we're going and how long we're supposed to be there and what to do if all of these different events happen. And then we'll go out to the truck and wait for the commander to come out. And then when he comes out, we'll go out, load our weapons in front of the gate, and then go out on mission. A typical mission for my squad was we went to normally 2 or 3 different police stations a day. And so we would go and spend the morning at one. We'd convoy to the station and then pull security at the station while our commander went inside and met with the station commander. And then he would come out. Normally they were generals. He would come back out when he was ready, and then we would go to the next station. And while we're on stations, we're pulling security between the driver and the gunner. We'd switch out about every 30 to 45 minutes because it's really hot over there, and so got to make sure that the gunner stays cool. And so the gunner and driver actually switched out into the gunner's seat and just watched.
So did you feel like you had to have eyes in the back of your head? Were you in constant danger?
We were in constant danger, and we actually had our truck set up so that you didn't have to watch behind you. Somebody else had that area covered, and so you were just watching like this area. And so our fields of fire or fields of vision, wherever we're supposed to be watching, formed a complete 360 and overlapped a little bit and just communicated through the radio.
Was there ever a concerted attack upon you or your trucks while you were out?
We got shot at, but since we were in up-armored vehicles, it wasn't anything that was that worrisome. There was never a complex attack on us. There was one EFP that went off on another squad from our company, and actually killed 2 guys and injured 1, Henry Minke. And Blankenstaff, he was the gunner, but he is really injured, but he survived. And so that was a hard experience to deal with and kind of trying to decide who it was meant for and if it was meant for us, and just trying to deal with the fact that 2 really good men were taken and killed for not a good reason. And so this is the one time that it was really real, that good people die there.
Did that change the way you operated, the way you thought after that attack?
It did. My squad was the response squad, the QRF, quick response or quick reaction force, and so we actually responded to that and pulled security and helped them load everything, pull everything that they could out of the truck and help them load Blankenstaff, the guy that was wounded, and load as much of Henry and Minky as they could, to put in a casket back. And so just pulling security there and knowing that the people who are responsible for this attack are like right up here on the bridge and we can see them, but since we weren't allowed to engage them, that was hard. And so after that, I think we all operated with more anger and resentment, and we were more, I don't know that you can get more aware than we already were, but we were very more cognizant, or we paid attention to more things, and we were very aware of our surroundings.
Did that change your feelings towards the Army at all?
It changed my feelings towards the mission. After seeing how all of that played out, and the guys that were responsible for planning the bomb and detonating the EFP, and the fact that there were 2 others, a secondary and a 3rd device that were meant to kill us, and seeing that the guys responsible for that were just released back into the general public, it changed how I thought about what we were doing and my devotion to the cause. And it wasn't so much about protecting and helping Iraqi civilians. It was more about staying alive and making sure that my brothers and sisters around me stayed alive.
You'd mentioned in our pre-interview that you always had to be on guard, and that the quote was, "Complacency kills."
Yeah, complacency kills.
Were you ever safe in any locations, and what did the continual stress do to you?
No, I don't think we weren't safe until we got back to Indiana. Like, you would think that coming back to the U.S. would make you safe, but there was actually a guy that tried to bomb the base that we were at with a bomb in a pizza box. They apparently attempted it more than once, but they caught him right before we got back. And so it was like right after we left, but right before we got back, so in between our time in country. And so knowing that and going back to the same place was nerve-wracking, because you just want to go home and, be in this safe environment where you don't have to worry about people trying to kill you. But no, there was never a time in Iraq that we were safe, or even Kuwait, that I felt safe or safe enough to walk around without at least my 9mm on my hip. And so I think that has made me paranoid, and it's carried over to today, and I don't like to go places without a gun, and so it made me feel unsafe all the time, I think, and constantly judging other people, not like, oh, I don't like that person, but like, what do I think this person could do to me?
You continually, even here and now, doing threat assessment as you scan crowds?
Yeah. If I go into a restaurant, I won't have my back away from where most of the people are. I don't like crowds. I avoid them if I can. If I am in a crowd, then I'm constantly looking around at people, and I normally stand at the back of the crowd and kind of make up these plans, like, okay, if this happens, then I can go here. And so I don't like to be in a room where there's only one point of entry and exit. So it's kind of a constant, how would you respond to this?
And that is a direct result of what you experienced. You know, have you been diagnosed with PTSD?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with PTSD pretty soon after we got back. I wouldn't say that it's gotten better. I think that it's gotten easier to deal with. And so seeing that, it is a real thing, and I didn't want to admit that I had it at first, so I tried to pretend that everything was fine, and then you add the rest of life stressors in, and it just made it worse. But, yeah.
When did you have that realization, okay, I need to seek help, and where did you reach out?
We got back in 2009, and I had the realization that I really needed help in the beginning of 2011. And so I tried to go get help from the VA. And so I didn't have the greatest experience there. And I don't really want to cloud the perception of that. But I didn't have a good experience there. And so I just stopped trying to go through them and just tried to talk to my family about it and go to school and start learning more about it and kind of like figure out what's causing it and how it's like impacting me so that I know how to kind of play against it. And so just learning about myself and what my triggers were and how other people have done this, and then just finding a passion, something that I really wanted to live life for, helped a lot. But I think just turning and letting my family in and letting my family help me really helped. And then giving some doctors at the VA a second chance to help me it's been helpful. And I've used them a lot, and just kind of going and talking to somebody that understands it a little bit more than my family, and kind of I can tell them more than I can tell my family about some things, just because I don't want my family to worry or be like, wow, I didn't realize that.
So you found a passion. Can you describe your passion?
Yeah. My passion is now helping veterans. I want to give them a system that they can go to outside of the VA to get, I don't want to say better help, but more help, or kind of a different side of help than the bureaucratic VA style help. Because some doctors at the VA are great, and then you have others who are lower than great, like lower than not great, whatever that is, killers. And so I want to be a counselor for veterans and help them, explore what happened to them, and just give them that opportunity to get help without being labeled. And then, so I started an organization called Walking Wounded to raise money and raise awareness for that cause. Eventually, I want to open up my own practice, kind of like a complete practice with doctors and counselors and psychiatrists, and then kind of like a voc rehab program and just grants that they can get, and a place where veterans can go if they're struggling to pay rent or they're struggling to pay an electric bill because they can't get a job, or they need help paying a medical bill because the VA wouldn't cover something that they really needed, or just kind of an all-around holistic, helpful approach to helping veterans make the transition. And the transition isn't just a 1 or 2 year period, it's really a lifelong journey of finding a new normal, kind of that balance between your military life and your civilian life, and how to let those intermingle and kind of exist at the same time, but not completely wiping out the other one, and so you can be a functioning member of society instead of something that you don't like. And so just helping veterans appreciate themselves and raising awareness that we're not all crazed killers, and that PTSD is not a death sentence for anyone.
You've taken your own experiences, negative experiences, and turned them around, turned them into a positive. What advice would you give for maybe friends or family members who know a veteran that's come back, or maybe even further back, Vietnam?
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give them as far as engaging that veteran?
Engage them at their own pace. You can't distance yourself from them, or it's going to be a sign that you don't want to be there for them. But you also can't just push yourself and be like, you got to talk to me, I love you, you should feel these things. Like, it's realizing that they're going to be a changed person, and just like we're all constantly changing, I feel like a veteran maybe changes more in their lifetime, because you deploy, and so you have to become that warrior, and then you live on this high alert stage for however long you deploy, months to years, and then you come back and you're kind of trying to figure out, I want this part of my old life back, but I want to keep this part, and I want to keep this part, and sometimes they don't work well. So just being supportive and letting them know that you're there, and that they don't always have to go to everything, and that if they want to stay home, you can run a movie, or you give them their space, but also holding them accountable for how they're treating other people and how they're treating you, and that they might be having a bad day, but it's not your fault, and that you're here for them, but you're not going to take abuse, and just kind of learning how to be a new couple or a new family.
It sounds complex, it sounds difficult.
Yeah.
And as a civilian, non-military, it may be something that is beyond our ability to completely understand.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's, sorry.
No, do you think that being a veteran yourself, is this experience of combat, this experience of stress, is something that only another veteran can relate to?
I think there are aspects that only another veteran are going to understand, but there are times when I don't care if somebody understands. I just want somebody to listen. And so that's what my family does for me. And they just being unconditionally supportive, and letting the veteran that like, I don't understand this. I don't, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. But I'm here to listen, and I can empathize with you, and I can't imagine how horrible that must be, and I'm sorry that you went through that. Like, sometimes acknowledging that you don't understand something is a lot better than trying to pretend like you do. And so just seeing veterans as humans instead of diagnosis. Like, oh, I think they might have PTSD, or I think they might have been wounded in action, or I think, they saw something horrible, or they might be schizophrenic or bipolar now, or, not looking at somebody's diagnosis as who they are, looking at them as a person, and, not as this. Don't look at them for what they might have done in war or what you think they might have done in war. You know, who are they as a person, and how can I help them be okay with who they are, or help them become the person they want to be.
Would you like this?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I think this came off.
Let me check my notes real quick, because we went way ahead, and now I'm like, I think we. I'm sorry for this.
No, you're fine.
If I can back up just a little bit,
Mm.
and I think you touched on it already, but when you were over there and then you saw troops within your organization killed and wounded,
Mm-hmm.
Motivations change, feelings change. What kept your motivation high, your morale high? Was there a thought or an ideal? And I say patriotism, but that may not apply. What kept you kind of functioning?
I don't think patriotism's the right word. I think brotherhood. I think that's the right word. I think what kept me alive was knowing that whoever was beside me, whether it was my team leader or my gunner or another squad member or company or, you know, like Army member, whoever I was operating with, trusting that they had my back, and just knowing that I wanted to keep them alive because I didn't want to see anybody else die. And so just keeping that in mind, and that, you know, like, if I move the wrong way or I don't see something, then I might not be the one that dies. And so making sure that I didn't want to make a mistake and get somebody else killed or see somebody else die over there, knowing that whoever did it was not going to get what they deserved. So keeping that alive, just brotherhood and family, that sense of pride and family and the people around you.
As you got closer to being short, you were nearing the end of your deployment,
Mm-hmm.
What thoughts were going through your mind?
I think that when we were getting ready to leave, it was just anticipation for not having to be in this state of war every day, and just not being in combat all the time, and looking forward to being safe or not in harm's way. I was looking forward to seeing my family, but I tried not to think about that a lot unless I was in my room or, you know, getting ready to go to sleep. Because if you get complacent, you know, other people can die. And so just keeping that quote from basic training about complacency kills going in my mind, and being safe and not being threatened, and just, you know, staying on guard. I think that there was a statistic that most people die within 3 months of getting there or 3 months of leaving. So keeping that statistic in my mind about, you know, don't get complacent and don't let your guard down, because people die that way.
Yeah. Can you describe your emotions as the transport plane lifted off and you were coming home, and what did you think was next?
Coming home, I don't remember feeling anything. I feel like being deployed allowed me to become numb. And so I don't really think that, I know I would like to think that some part of me was excited to see my family, but I think at that point I was numb. and I wasn't feeling anything. And so knowing that I was going to come home was exciting, but it was nerve-wracking, and I just avoided feeling anything about it besides going home. And so I'm supposed to be excited. I remember kind of not understanding why I wasn't more excited. It's not that I didn't love my family. I just felt like I had distanced myself so much that coming home, it was hard not to distance myself from them or from my feelings. And so not only was I not feeling good emotions, I just wasn't feeling emotions at all. And
How long did it take you to regain those emotions or any emotions?
I still have some emotions that I don't feel well. I think anger is the one emotion that I've held on to through the deployment. Up until now, I have no problem feeling anger, but everything else is a struggle to admit that I'm feeling this and that it's okay to feel this. And so I think it took up to 2 years to understand what happiness felt like again, and kind of allowing myself to be happy about something or get excited about something and not think that it was going to be taken away or that it could be taken away, and not worry about that. I think so. Anger and happiness. I think depression started a lot sooner than I thought it did, or that I was even aware that it did. And so just feeling intense sadness or guilt about some things that happened, those came. So it was anger, sadness, and guilt, happiness, more anger and sadness and guilt. And so just happiness, I think, has been one of the hardest ones to get back and to feel again, and not feeling guilty about being happy again. And so that's a struggle that I know that I face, and some other people that I deployed with face, because it's kind of like, and it's something that not a lot of people will understand, but it's like you're happy and then you think about the 2 guys that died, or everybody that's died over there, and how they don't get to be happy anymore, and then their family, they don't get to experience this stuff. And it's a culture of they shouldn't have died, I should have died for them, or I should have been the one that died. And I feel like a lot of soldiers and military people feel that same way. It's like, they were a better person than I am, and so I should have died. Or, it's just none of us want to die, but we'd be the first to give our lives for them. And that's just the culture in the military, is just, you may not even like a person, but you would die for them. And so just being okay with being happy, knowing that they're not here to be happy anymore, and that they wouldn't want you to not be happy, and that's like all in your head, and it's okay.
Did the survivor's guilt that you felt translate into anger, and who or what were you angry with or at?
Yeah, I think the guilt turns into anger, or it's getting better now, but 2 or 3 years ago, 5 years ago, it jumped from sadness and guilt to anger really fast, and I was angry all the time. I was angry at everything. I was angry. I could get angry because somebody dropped a soup can in front of me in the grocery store, or somebody made a loud noise, or the restaurant cashier didn't get my order right, or somebody cut me off in traffic. And it wasn't like, oh my God, they did this. It was like what the fuck is this person doing? Anything that made loud noises or disrupted how I did something really made me angry, or kind of people getting too close made me really angry. And so just learning how to feel emotions other than anger. It's still something that I work on, and I think anger is a go-to because it fuels you to get stuff done, but it's not the best way to get stuff done.
Is that the valuable life lesson that you have when relating to other veterans? Our Gulf War I veteran said he has a coworker who came back from Iraq around your deployment and said he was angry. He was angry at everything and everybody, and it took hours of conversation between those two different eras, but they had common ground.
Mm-hmm.
Have you talked with maybe veterans from other eras, other wars, and do you feel a bond or connection with them?
I've talked to some. Going to the VA, it's really hard not to talk to someone because we all just talk to each other. And so, I think it's really easy. It's a lot easier to bond with a veteran than it is to bond with a civilian, just because, you might have not been to the same place, but you have the same experiences and you live the same culture, and it's a lot easier to look at a veteran and say, I'm angry today, or, this happened and I felt this way, and instead of a look of shock, like I saw this person die and I felt nothing, it's going to elicit a strong response from civilians and be like, she's messed up. But from a veteran, it's like, I've been there, I've done that, I know how that feels, and so, or what that's like. And so, talking with other veterans I feel a bond a lot easier with them than I do just other people. I'll have a conversation all day long with a veteran, but it's really hard for me to even have small talk with somebody else that I don't know, a civilian or another classmate. And so I feel like this really awkward person talking to people who haven't deployed or people who aren't veterans. It's hard to find the words to explain an experience they've never experienced.
And probably can't understand fully.
Yeah, you can watch all of the movies that you want, but until you've been there and you've done that, it's not the same.
Have you contemplated maybe joining the American Legion or the VFW?
I'm a member of the American Legion and the VFW. I'm not very active in them just because I've chosen not to be, and I just don't feel like I've always had the time to do it, and it's just something that I've been avoiding doing for no good reason. But I pay dues. I just don't go into any of the meetings or anything like that.
Do you think that's still part of your healing process?
Maybe a little bit. I think part of me just has this image of veterans organizations being for older people, and that my experiences don't match theirs, and while I know that they understand, I feel like my experiences haven't been as much as their experiences, and so I don't want them to think that I'm trying to say that I've done more than they did. It's probably all in my head. I've been to some of their activities and everybody was really nice. I think it's just me just avoiding doing them and just kind of not making the time for it.
Yeah. My friend Chris would talk to you, and he was the same way for 3 years. Didn't go. Finally got talked to by 2 Vietnam veterans who said, you really need to come because we're getting older and we need to pass the torch off. Mm-hmm. And they talked him into it, and so he enjoys his time. Positively, looking at the future, 5 to 10 years from now, where do you see yourself and where do you see the Walking Wounded Project?
10 years from now, I see myself finally graduated from school, hopefully with a PhD, getting close to practicing by myself or doing more work with Walking Wounded and actually having a building where people can come and get help instead of just kind of like a website or a phone call. And so I see myself as more successful and actually doing more work with veterans and getting them the help that they need instead of just still in school doing all of these different papers and not necessarily getting to do as much as I want with veterans because I have to meet different other people's standards and what they want. And so I see myself actually working with more veterans, counseling them, and kind of working with the community to get the word out and having more events and more marches and awareness events and having a bigger network. And I see Walking Wounded as 5-10 years from now is still growing and working really hard to be successful, and I see it helping other veterans and being a place where any veteran can go, even if it's just for emotional support. I'm hoping that we get the monetary support that we need to start helping veterans more, but I would be happy with it if it's just kind of a place where veterans can go and seek support and friendship and networking and kind of a place where they don't feel isolated and scary.
A positive force in your community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully it grows into a nationwide organization and there's more than just an Indiana home for it, and hopefully I can get, everybody, at least one person from every state on board.
10 years from now.
Yeah.
It's a goal.
It's a goal. It's a big goal. And I think just the main goal is just to keep working at it and make it successful, because I realize that it's not going to be easy and that I'm going to hit a lot of roadblocks and a lot of people that are very resistant to change and help. And just changing, what I would like it to do is change the public's opinion about PTSD, really.
It's a good step.
Yeah.
I think the challenges you described in your attitude is analogous to when you were 17 years old and you wanted to help people. Mm-hmm. And you knew that basic training was going to be difficult and there were going to be obstacles. So now this is the next phase maybe of your life. And how would you say that your past experiences have now prepared you for everything that lies ahead of you?
I think my past experiences, a lot of my military experiences, have given me the strength and the work ethics it takes to be successful and overcome all of these adversarial events, because I've dealt with it a lot. And so just drawing from those strengths and knowing, I've been through hell and made it back. Like this, I'm not going to let this stop me. I think that, everything that I've done since I was 17 till now, it's going to prepare me for the future, and kind of, it's given me a passion to learn more about PTSD and mental illnesses in general, and helping people realize that it doesn't, what's the saying? Something doesn't make the person. The shoes don't make the person, or whatever. It's just your mental illness doesn't define who you are, or your experiences don't define who you are. It's what you do with that and how you let it run your life, or if you let it run your life.
What are the words honor and duty? What would they have meant to your 17-year-old self, and what do they mean to you now?
At 17, honor was just military lingo, or kind of it's just something associated with the military, and honor is just, it means that you've given something and people recognize that and are giving you the recognition, recognizing it. Today, honor is more of you've sacrificed everything that you could for your country, and it doesn't matter if people recognize it. It's kind of honoring memories or honoring people and making things better. And it's not necessarily a military thing. It's more of being a helpful, good person and honoring, what people have done for you. Keeping that sense of selflessness and sacrifice and, always being supportive of somebody is more honorable than military service. Duty, I don't think has changed much. I think duty, when I joined at 17, was more like, it's your job. And now it's more like life, like a life obligation. And it's just like you have a duty to do your job, and now you have a duty to help other people, or you have a duty to yourself to do what you can to be happy, and you have a duty to other people to not hurt them.
Yeah. It sounds like you're helping. When you described honor, it sounded to me that honor in the 17-year-old sense was external, is what people were giving you.
Yeah.
And honor now is an internal, something that comes from inside you, perhaps?
Yeah, I think honor at 17 was just about, what people can give you and just people seeing what you've done and what you're doing. And now I think about it more of an inward thing about other people. So you're honoring other people, and not so much having what you're doing recognized, but more of what's been done and how you can farther that.
Check my notes real quick. I guess to wrap up, because we touched on quite a bit, but I want to make sure I covered everything. So is there anything that I may have forgotten to talk about that you would like to express?
They have one question.
They have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Once you finish up, if you want to add anything right now.
Okay. You have the floor, and then they're going to ask their question.
I think just no matter what's happened to you, you can't give up, and the struggle can get worse, but it's gonna get better eventually. And just keeping in mind that what you've done or what you have doesn't define who you are. It's what you're doing and what you're going to do defines who you are as a person.
Okay.
I don't think I have anything else.
Okay. They'll ask their question now.
When you went in, did you have a female mentor, with you, or someone that you could go to ask questions? And if so, kind of explain that. And then now, what would you say to somebody who came in looking for a mentor or something like that?
Okay. When I joined, I didn't really have a mentor. I had some people that I was close to that kind of told me what it was going to be like, but I didn't have anybody go do this and do this, because my parents didn't 100% know what it was going to be like, because it's two different branches. When I got to my unit, I didn't really have anybody that's like, oh, I'm going to take you under my wing and do this. Like the way that squads and platoons and companies are set up, you're kind of divided down into mentorship programs, or your team leader is going to mentor you because they're trying to build you up to become a team leader. I would say as far as a female mentor, I had mentors show me what not to do. There's one woman, and I don't necessarily know that she looked at herself or that our relationship was more of a mentor one, but more of a friendship, and kind of she showed me or told me, what not to do, but also how to do things that were within military regulation, but kind of defined, let me keep my being a woman. So without becoming 100% manly or losing my identity as a woman. And I had a woman commander who told us that, yeah, we're soldiers, but we're also women, and that we need to keep that in mind, and it's okay. The military's come a long way, and so it's okay that you need to go brush your hair and not look like a hot mess. And that it's okay to be a woman and have feelings, and that's what we bring into the military and get them to change, is kind of give it a woman's touch, and not necessarily we always have to just go in and knock everything down. It's okay to have this feminine touch about you and not always be aggressive and angry, and it's okay to be compassionate and listen to people.
Did that kind of play out when you were deployed to Iraq? Were there instances where your compassion or empathy for someone else was the better route?
Yeah, I think that we taught them morals, or not necessarily taught them, but we tried to help them develop a moral code. And so in one instance, there was a mentally disabled boy who liked to go to the Iraqi police station, and I'm not really sure why he liked it, but he would go and they would rape him. And so when we realized that's what's happening, like, our first instinct was to hurt him. The policemen doing the raping, and then it's just like having a conversation with them, like, you can't do that. That's not okay in any culture. And just so having that compassion's not even the right word in that instance, just having self-control to be as calm as you can in a situation like that, to let them know, like, that's not really okay, and the world's changing, and while you don't want it to, it's happening, and you can't do that and still be civilized, and you're not going to reach your goals by living like cavemen. So I think that's, like, the guys in our unit were like, we need to beat them, and we were just like, it's probably not the best approach. So I think, yeah, in some cases it did, but after Henry Minky died, it was just like, I didn't care anymore, and it's just like everything was numb, and I don't really care what happens to any of these people. I just want to go home.
Was that a common feeling among the other soldiers in your unit? The emotions slowly drained away?
Yeah, I think so. I think by the end we were all just really numb, and I think it took longer to set in for some people than it did others. But definitely by the end, most of us, or most of the people that I talked to, they lost their compassion for them and didn't. It was us versus them, and we're gonna win. Like, we're gonna make it through, and they're not. Like, it's not like a 50-50 thing. It's like an us versus them, and survival of the fittest, and are going to be the fittest.
So, you know, how to phrase it? War has, I guess, a debilitating effect upon human emotions, and I think that's always going to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I think war takes away emotions, because you can't fight a war and always do the right thing. I think there are times when the wrong thing has to happen to gain the advantage. And so if you have people who know that you think about how you're going to make everybody feel and how it's going to affect everybody besides what's going to make you look the strongest or what's going to give you the most advantage, you're not going to win. And people are going to take advantage of that. And so I think that war is not pretty, and that there's a lot that war takes out of people. And I think it's easier to fight a war without emotions and public outcry than it is to fight it with emotions and win and be successful.
Okay, last question. Is there anything that you've seen in the press or you think future generations should know about your service and what you went through 40, 50, 100 years from now?
I think, like, even though the battle is going to change, the struggles are always going to be the same, and that understanding that people don't always have a choice about what they do in war, and that, yeah, while my war experiences are still a big part of me, the fact that I went to war doesn't define me as a person. And just understand that war or being a soldier is not a bad thing, and that we're not the enemy, or that, you know, our experiences aren't going to turn us into crazed killers who are going to come home and shoot everybody here dead. It's just, you need to have support for veterans, and when you don't support them, then it's hard for them to figure out what the right thing is. And it's just have more support for your veterans, and don't label them as fast, and try to be compassionate. Understanding is not the right word. Just compassionate and caring. Care enough to listen. Sometimes that's all anybody needs, is just somebody to listen to them, and not blow them off or not push them away because they don't have time. And these wait lists are bullshit. And that's the biggest thing in the news right now, is all these different wait lists, and people think that it doesn't happen so close to home, but it does.
So, the bureaucracy of the VA needs fixed.
We need to stop. I don't even know what approach they take to it, but they need to take a more humanistic approach, a more helpful approach, instead of how much money can we save and what can we do with this. Like, healthcare is not something that you can just cut, and you shouldn't, especially with mental health, there shouldn't be a 2-month wait list to get in to see a counselor. Chances are, if you're a veteran and you're reaching out for help for mental health, it's already a crisis. And if you have to wait 2 months, they might not live through it. There are 23 veteran suicides a day. And I haven't done very much research, but I think a lot of that is due to lack of support. And that, you know, people go to get mental health care as a last resort, and the VA should not be a last resort for people, and it is, and that's sad.
So, as people, private citizens, we need to extend a hand, listen, be compassionate, and open our eyes to the situation of our veterans.
Yeah. Yeah, be compassionate, listen, and just don't think that what a veteran is telling you is exaggerated. Fix the VA system. For every horrible story you hear in the news about somewhere else, I can give you a horrible story that's happened to one of our veterans here in Muncie or one of our veterans around the state in Indianapolis. And I think that's sad because not everybody that works there are horrible people, but that's the reputation they're getting, and people would rather go into bankruptcy than go seek medical care from the government at the VA right now. That's scary.
Or not get treatment,
Yeah.
you know, or not acknowledge that they
Yeah.
have a problem. And that's where 5 to 10 years, we want to see your program fill that void.
Yeah, yeah. And then as far as any like words of wisdom that I can give to people is like, if you need help, get it, seek it early on. Even if you think you don't need help, like it's always nice to talk to somebody. And so just seeking out help for a problem before it's a problem, and like knowing that it's okay to not always be 100% and that it's not expected that you're always 100%, and that having PTSD or needing help, and it's better to have a support network than it is to try and go it alone, because I don't know that anybody's ever made it anywhere completely by themselves.
Lend a hand.
Yeah.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much for sitting with us. On behalf of WIPB and Ball State University, I thank you for your service to our country and for your continued extra service that you're doing for our veterans. I think it's going to be a great big help, and I hope to hear more great things about your program in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.